Welcome back, everyone, to my favorite Twilight Zone episode series. Today, we're going to continue with the best twists, part 2, Spur of the Moment, season 5, episode 21. Anne is riding her horse across her family's property when suddenly a woman dressed in all black screams her name and chases after her. She gets into her house before the woman can catch up to her, where her parents and her fiance Robert are waiting for her. She explains what has just happened, and they really don't believe her. They try to console her and have her think about something happier, her upcoming marriage to Robert. It's very clear early on that Anne is not a big fan of Robert. He seems very awkward and makes bad jokes, often making the situation worse. Her former fiance David appears at the door to plead his love for her and begs her to break off the marriage with Robert to be with him. Robert and David get into each other's faces. Robert actually is knocked down by David, but is fortunately unharmed, maybe except for a bruised ego. David demands that Anne look him in the eye and tell him that she will not be with him. Anne's father tells David that her silence is her answer, then draws a gun and forces him to leave. 2.5 decades later, her father has died, her mother is basically destitute, and Anne has become an alcoholic. She talks to her mother about her situation and mentions that there is an old saying, go chase yourself. And that's when she realizes she had been doing just that 25 years earlier.
I have become that grotesque phantom that frightened that poor, childlike girl half to death 25 years ago.
Her mother receives a phone call from some unidentified lawyer claiming that she's now lost the estate, and she seems very uncaring with Anne's plight. After all, she's got her own problems to deal with. She's angry with her deceased father for not having given her more life skills and having her try to earn things for herself. Essentially, she realizes that she's been a spoiled child, and her father let her be that way. You come to find that her husband is the one who has bankrupted their once glorious estate through mismanagement. However, this episode is full of twists, because not only does she realize that it was her older self chasing her younger self, trying to warn her of what would happen, but her husband is not Robert.
Warned about what? Huh?
Her husband is actually David. She decided to elope with him after their engagement party 25 years earlier, essentially making the wrong decision without realizing it. At the end, she decides to go for a ride on horseback to clear her mind. While she's on the ridge, she sees her younger self. She yells, However, the younger Anne runs into the house to tell her parents and Robert what had happened. Now, this episode starts out as sort of a horror episode where you think that it's going to be this witch or terrible thing chasing after Anne. And then you come to find that Anne was trying to warn herself 25 years earlier not to make the wrong decision. The great part about this twist is that the wrong decision was that she went with David in the long run, not Robert. Where in the beginning of the episode, you think that the bad decision that she's going to make is marrying Robert anyway, when it turns out that even though Robert was awkward and inappropriate, in the long run, he probably was going to be the stabilizing force that she would have needed in her life. Instead, she went against what was going to be good for her and decided to go with the more arrogant, pushy, aggressive person who really wanted to be with her, only to find that he was the bad thing that she had been avoiding up until that point. She had actually made the right decision years earlier by breaking it off with him instead of marrying him. And yet, she now breaks it off with the person who probably would have been better for her to go with the person who ends up ruining her life. But the question remains, would Robert really have been the better choice? Or was she destined to have a horrible life? And it was merely picking Robert was going to be the lesser of two evils. The Lateness of the Hour. Season 2, Episode 8. Jana lives with her parents, and her father is a doctor. What you come to find early on is that they live also with 5 robot servants, actually. Jana is very upset and annoyed that she's not allowed to leave the house. Her father believes that he is doing it to help her and keep her protected from an outside world. She doesn't like the robots, as seen when she knocks one of them over and they get up seemingly unhurt. She begs her father to get rid of these servants before they become too reliant on them.
Instead of controlling, you're being controlled. Why, you're becoming dependent. You're both reaching a point where you won't be able to exist without them. Destroy them, Father. Get rid of them.
Eventually, he decides that it's better to get along with his daughter than to worry about the robots. So he sends them downstairs to be destroyed. They protest, asking what they've done wrong, but he just insists that they should go down into the basement. Now that the other servants are gone, Jana can actually express how much she would love to get in relationships and go traveling and have a job. And all of these things are strangely received by her parents. Something that you come to find is there are no pictures of Jana as a child in the house. Her parents want her to think long and hard about why that might be. And the twist here is she is a robot too. All of her memories were created by her father. Dr. Lauren explains that he and his wife were never able to have children, and so they wanted to have someone to love as close to a daughter as possible, and they see her as their daughter. Jana does not receive this very well. While they wanted to build a daughter that they could love, she realizes that she can't feel any love of her own, and she also can't feel anything at all.
What am I? Oh, please tell me what I am.
It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference at all, Jaina. We were childless.
Sometime later, the Laurens are relaxing in their home, and then you come to find that
A little to the left, Nelda. Not quite so hard.
Of course, Mrs. Loren. Of course.
Jana's memory has been erased, and now she has been turned into essentially another servant. Another great twist. I love this episode also. Now, in the Twilight Zone, robots and AI are very big, and I think that it's very topical in today's world, especially. But what's so great to see is that even so many years later, the question about what it means to be human is still very relevant, probably more so today than it was back when this episode was created. In my novel series, A Spark in the Ashes, I also try to seek out those answers. What does it mean to be human? And when you see that something is a robot or is a machine, does that make it worth any less or any more than a human mind? Now, that isn't to say that if it's a robot that's just doing generic house chores, being just an automated thing, should mean that it's more valuable or even as valuable as a human life. What I mean is going back to like Alicia in The Lonely and now Jana in The Lateness of the Hour. Now that they are really fully acting, feeling, and behaving like humans with their own thoughts and aspirations and surface level feelings, does that mean that they should be treated as a human? Should they be treated as less than a human? Or should they be treated in some other way? I'm eager to know what you think. Stopover in a Quiet Town, Season 5, Episode 30. Bob and Millie Fraser wake up in a seemingly abandoned town, not knowing how they got there. They only seem to remember that Bob drank too much, and while Millie was driving them both home, some large shadow fell over them. They realize through very short investigation that the house they're in are merely fake things. Fake food, utensils, the phone isn't real, but they do hear a child's laughter. When they go to investigate, they realize there are no animals, no people, not even the sound of birds. The only animal that they think is living is a squirrel that when they pick it up realize that it's stuffed. Since it's a Sunday, everyone must be in church. So they enter the church, where again, there is no one there. In an effort to get someone's attention, Bob rings the church bell. Now, here and there throughout the episode, they're hearing this girl's laughter, and they keep trying to find her. Clearly, there is someone around. At another part in the episode, they even see that the grass is made of paper mache when it catches fire. They find a car with a mannequin inside, and the car engine won't start because that too is fake. At this point, Millie thinks that they actually crashed and died when she saw that shadow, and this is actually hell. At that point, they hear a train whistle and now are relieved that something is going to take them out of this town and hopefully out of this hell-like nightmare. When they sit down, they discover through conversation that Millie had been drinking a lot too, and so they were both equally to blame for not knowing how they got there.
You did have a few drinks at the party now, didn't you?
One or two.
Soon after, they realize that the train has just done one big circle and come back to Centerville, which is the town they realize that they are in.
No.
No, well, maybe it's not the same Centerville.
It's the same one.
As they try to walk out of town, they hear that girl's laughter once more, but now a giant shadow falls over them. They're scooped up by a gigantic hand, and it's revealed that this child is actually playing with them. Her mother tells her to
Be careful with your pets, dear. Daddy brought them all the way from Earth.
as she drops them back into Centerville. They look for a place to hide, realizing that they really are in a hell-like nightmare. Now, I think the moral of the story here is pretty clear, as Rod Serling talks about in his ending narration. Whether the couple now ending up in Centerville and being pets for this new gigantic alien child is a consequence of them drinking and driving, I'm not really sure. I think that there's something to be said about, well, they were both drinking and driving, and now they end up in a situation that they have no idea how they got themselves into. They hypothetically could have been scooped up, stone sober, driving home as well. Now, obviously, kids, don't drink and drive. That's something I think everyone can agree on. This episode actually reminds me a little bit of The Little People. I did a video on that on my channel about aliens. Check it out if you have a minute. Now, in that episode, in The Little People, a man is treating tiny aliens like he is their god and he could do whatever he wants to them, only to find at the end of the story that he is just as small as they would be in the grander scheme of things. So this reminded me a little bit of that, where aliens are often shown as extremely tall in the Twilight Zone, kind of in the setup and actually in the hand grabbing a human being. So there is some thematic connection between those two as well. I just hope that Bobby and Millie were able to find a place to hide before that girl scooped them up once again. So thanks for watching my Best Twists in the Twilight Zone Part 2. Which episode was your favorite? Was there one I didn't cover that you want me to in a later episode? Comment down below and let me know what you think. And until then, I'll see you guys later.